Hello viewers and welcome to part 2 of our F1 2013 Gamescom coverage. So part 1 we saw a bit of gameplay round Brands Hatch. Part 2 now is a discussion now with Andy Gray and Paul Gill, the game director. A bit about Formula 1, ideas behind this version, what you can look forward to. This is a 2-part interview. This is part 1. Part 2 will be up shortly. Let's see what they have to say.
So F1 2013, obviously the big new feature this year is F1 Classics in terms of for the first time in Codemasters series putting in classic content, classic drivers. You know, certainly been a big milestone. It seems like it's been forever that we've been trying to get this stuff there. I mean, it's not deliberately waited for this year. It's just the way that it's all come together, and it just happens to be a great year for it as well. With Rush coming out, and with seems to be a lot of other games all doing the sort of retro legend based stuff. So it's massively exciting for us. So that's the sort of big core new game mode, but. As ever, we're hard at work, you know, trawling the forums and Twitter and various bits and pieces about improving the experience that was there. You know, the race experience, the tyres, the AI, the penalties, safety car, etc. So really, there's sort of a dual focus on it. I guess this is brand new component, but that doesn't mean in any way that we've taken our eyes off the ball, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot of information out in the public domain about the classic cars, so that's enabled us to, you know, with the physics model that we've got and the way that we've moved that forward. Okay.
Big face full of mics.
That's a bit like the race engineer in our game. The way that all those numbers plug into our system, it just kind of worked out quite well off the bat. And like you said, I think it's instantly a little bit easier to play because everything's a bit slower. You know, one of the things I think that people generally struggle about with F1 is it's so fast. You know, you've got to kind of brake before the corner, and you've got to turn in earlier than you think you've got to turn in another racing game. So those are things which I think are kind of eliminated a little bit in the classic mode. So obviously spent a lot of time working on the different handling characteristics. And I think with classics in particular, when you're thinking about the handling characteristics of a 1980s Williams all the way through to a 1999 Ferrari, for example, I mean, that's, you know, it's 19 years of F1, and F1 doesn't stand still for too long. So you're really beginning to feel and sense the progression in terms of technology. I mean, certainly from even the 80s stuff on its own, the 1980 Williams through to the 88 Ferrari, for example, two completely different beasts. And like I'm the same as you, really. I get into the flow of the game, but I'm just fighting that wheel spin all the time, and then sort of trying to overcorrect the sort of oversteer moments, if you like.
Yeah, I think losing the kind of aerodynamic grip that you have on a 2013 car, where it feels very planted all the time, and then going into something that's a turbo, and you've got that kind of turbo lag, and it just feels like you're being kicked all the time and like almost strapped to a rocket, and then you get to a bend and it's really, you got to dance your way around the corner rather than just going, right, here's my turning point, I'm in and I'm braking at the right point. It's much more kind of like seat of your pants racing, really.
Yeah, I tend to get feet cramps actually playing it a lot more now. You play 100% race distance on classics in particular, and you really feel like you've had a workout. You know, you can imagine back in the day when Mansell used to get in the car and be sweating and lost X number of pounds during the race, and that's what I feel like after a multiplayer race these days. I mean, each era's got its own bespoke tyre characteristics. I mean, we've still stuck with the sort of concept of options and primes, because I think, you know, trying to change the rule set throughout the eras, and then especially with the sort of refueling element, etc., would have been quite different. But in terms of, I mean, the classic cars are just so much more punishing on their tyres. I seem to spend forever and a day in the pits. Of course, the pit stops are slower as well, a little bit less efficient. We've had all that motion captured as well, and it kind of looks a little bit more, you know, unprofessional, shall we say? Just a load of guys sticking their hands in the air, and you know, you seem to spend forever in there, especially when it's a tight race, it's a close race. You're like, come on, get me out. Yeah, it's a two tracks are in 1980s configuration. I can't think of the specific year at the moment, but Brands and Jerez, and then Imola and Estoril in late 90s configuration. You know, and they add something different because, you know, they're sort of tight and twisty and you know, very much barren, and it's a complete contrast to the 2013 tracks, especially when you factor in you know, the sort of era timestamps that we've added as well, and it sort of kind of really feels like you're moving forward in time, which Well, you are. yeah. There's lots of nice little touches now. We've got a new art director this year, Anthony. He's been working hard on, HRT dropped off the grid last year, so this freed up this little bit of memory, and then everyone's been fighting over that bit. Can we spend it here? Can we spend it there? So certainly graphically, in terms of those animations into the garage environment itself as well just looks incredible this year, and a lot of the budget's gone on car textures. I don't think we were quite there cutting it, and those were sort of kind of exposed a little bit in spectator cam last year. So this year we were able to get the sort of camera angles that we wanted to get last year, but couldn't because the logos didn't stand up to sort of scrutiny. Yeah, I mean, Ants worked on Forza Horizon, and he learned a lot from other racing games and what other racing games do. And I think it was nice not only for that, but someone to come in with a fresh set of eyes and just kind of go, we need to step up in these areas, especially with sort of getting to the end of this generation of consoles and the hardware limitations. So to know that you're spending that little last ounce in the right area was critical, I think, and that's certainly coming across.
Yeah, I think especially if you go like on YouTube and you see the comparison videos between last year's game, going back 10, 11, 12, and then this year's game, the actual sea change in the visuals this year is really quite marked, and it's something you don't really notice so much when you work on it day to day, and you see it all the time. But then when you actually see it side by side with one of the old games, it's a real jump forward.
So that was part 1 of this interview. Part 2 will be up shortly, and of course then you have the other videos you can click here as well that are going to be on the channel if they're not up already, showing more of the racing action from Gamescom. We've got lots of videos on all the big racing titles at the show this year, and as ever there'll be more from me very soon.